I have this nice, comfortable tea, and you just deep-throated a fucking espresso.
This is what ADHD looks like, kids. I don't think thinking happens to me.
We back on the podcast. We back. Yeah, we did it. Josh, we made it through 2023.
Oh, man, it was a hell of a fucking ride, baby. Man, I shouldn't be swearing like that. My mom is going to be like, oh, I want to hear his New Year's resolutions. And she's going to be like, where did he learn to swear like that?
From you, Mom.
From you, Mom. That's...
It was you.
It was you.
Yeah.
It was you.
Oh, God. So, yeah, we've already done this episode once, but...
Yeah, we did.
The computer crashed and the footage looked awful because I had this new camera and I was still trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
I'm also testing the camera. If you're watching on YouTube, my footage looks freaking crispy because I got part of my New Year's resolution stuff is going to be, we'll talk about it in a minute, but I started like a side podcast thing. And we got these new cinema cameras and some lenses and stuff, and it looks really great. And so I'm at home. I'm bringing them home and like messing around with it and shooting some YouTube videos with it. And it's been really, really nice.
Today's episode, you're just going to watch me solve a Rubik's Cube. So
would be the first time. It would not be the first time. Firstly, Josh, did you get sick? Because I got sick.
I got sick. So I've been sick. So I was I had lots of lots of sessions the week leading up to me going home. So like we hung out, shot that podcast in person the week before I had those sessions, and it did not work out at all, but it was really great seeing your beautiful face in person.
And you got biscuits.
Yeah, and Drew bought me biscuits and a double espresso from one of his favorite coffee shops.
And it was banging.
He wined and dined me, dude.
Yeah, dude.
He wined and dined me. It was great.
You and your fiance.
And my fiance. We were both wined and dined by Drew.
Yeah, dude.
And so
I
had a week of sessions. That was stressful because Lee was packing up to move. I had to leave immediately after to go back to Pittsburgh for the holidays. So talking about last minute, it was very last minute. We got it all done. It was sick, but I was like losing my voice the entire week and it was cold and rainy. It was freezing. And so like I was in like, we were working like between like 10 and like 13 hours a day. Like it was pretty long days.
Yeah, I just realized what project you were talking about. Yeah, you guys were freaking at it, dude.
Yeah, it's like nobody heard from me for like an entire week because it was like I would wake up, get ready, go to the studio, work until like anywhere from like 9 to like I think the latest was like 11 or 11:30, and then I would like go home, go to bed, wake up, do it all over again.
Yeah.
And so I was not feeling great, especially because I ended the week by waking up at 5:30 to go work at that church and doing the broadcast mix. And then immediately after the service was done, I left for Pittsburgh. And so I got back. I slept for the entire day. And it was just like being home where it was even colder.
Mm-hmm.
I was not feeling too hot. There were lots of naps. And then came back from that, helped Lee and Bree move, got over the cold in like 2-3 days. And then I just woke up again today and I have yet another cold.
You sound like me, but like mine was all family related stuff. Mine wasn't work at all. I was lucky enough to be able to like take the week of Christmas and the week after Christmas pretty much off.
Yeah.
This week being the first week in January has been like, I'm still working. There's a lot of meetings actually. So I had a lot of like phone calls and a lot of in-person meetings that I've been meaning to do. And then nobody's been in town. So it's that weird time where like everybody's here and nobody's working quite yet. Like it hasn't quite picked up. So I've been,
I feel
like yesterday I had four meetings yesterday.
It's such a weird time of year.
Like 2 different coffee shops. Yeah.
Yeah. This time of year is very bizarre because it's like on one hand we have to get the sessions that we were doing, like we have to get them done ASAP, but then like nobody's around to listen to them. So
Yeah.
we're wrapping everything up tomorrow, which is really exciting.
Heck yeah, dude.
It's
That's
been a
exciting.
lot, like,
Yeah.
with everything. And yeah, like I got hit up for a tour, which is super weird
Yeah.
because like why would I get hit up for a tour?
We're
And it's
yeah.
literally just because it's that time of year where
And I'm
it's like
hoping
most people aren't available.
when that project actually finally starts coming out, um, when a single drops from it or something like that, I want to actually like talk about it like in
Yeah,
more openness because I don't
yeah,
want to talk about it preemptively until everything's
hmm
done and actually comes out.
yeah. There's some other cool stuff that I gotta tell you about it that
Yeah.
hasn't been finalized yet, but it's
Heck yeah.
really cool for
Um,
my friend Lee.
yeah, that's awesome, dude. Freaking Lee, I missed that guy.
I know.
And now I'm gonna miss him even more because he's moved to Florida.
He's gonna be back a lot. So like he's gonna be back.
All of his work generally is in Atlanta right now. So while he's getting established in Florida, I'm pretty sure it's gonna be that way.
Yeah. And then like basically the goal moving forward with that is like anytime we land a project together, we're just gonna factor in like his plane ticket,
Yeah,
and you know
should be fine.
it's gonna be easy. So
He's got places to stay, so it's not like a big deal.
many.
Yeah,
So
that's what I'm saying. He's
yeah,
not short of places to stay.
and then
So
we're planning on moving, and it's like the goal is to find like at least a 3-bedroom house. That way, we have like a guest room and then the
mhm.
studio. So
Yeah. Well, today, dear listeners, we're gonna go through and talk about a little bit about 2023 for us, and then also like looking forward into 2024, like some of the things that we're excited about and like the plans and the things we can talk about and or like goals that we want to have for ourselves or whatever. Uh we like I said, we already did this episode one time and it ended up being just us like rambling for a whole lot of time because it was our first in-person attempt and we learned. So this time we're going to be a little more concise. So Josh, why don't you start with like maybe like what you learned or how was 2023 in general or like some positives and negatives you kind of took away from the year.
there were, oh man, that's a lot. Why'd you
It's a
ask me
lot.
such a
Mixed
big
emotions.
one, dude? No, 2023 sucked in some ways. It was really good in other ways. I I found that, dude, every time we sit down for a podcast, everybody wants to talk to me. Um, so I had a lot of learning
Mm-hmm.
experiences this year. Like I feel like this year was like my training arc in an anime.
Yeah.
I was explaining that to someone the other day. I
Yeah.
was like, I was like, I feel like I was just training with Jiraiya, and now I have to go back and show everybody the Rasengan. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like,
Yeah.
like, um, uh, I like, okay,
Your Aaron
so
Yeager returning just shredded.
yeah, just full 8-pack, dude.
Absolutely just
Where'd it
beefed
come
up.
from? Where'd
Yeah.
it come from? I
I
didn't
don't know.
know. Like, nobody else really has 8-packs just because they're a Titan. But
Yeah, exactly.
no, so this year, I I lost more weight, which was great. I
Dude,
started taking
so
my fitness even more serious,
I
which was
noticed
cool.
that weirdly because I was going back through our old when I was compiling the episodes that I posted at the beginning of the year. If you go back and watch the first one I did, which was the hour long one,
hmm
and you watch the episodes, like me and you are both heavier,
Yeah,
like significantly, especially
yeah,
the ones at the beginning of the year. I think the first one I posted was like one of the ones with either I think it may have been Pace,
yeah,
which was like our earliest one last year the earliest interview that we did last year, and we're both like heavier than we are versus like more recent like edits that I've done. I've been like, man, we both like lost a lot of weight,
yeah, yeah.
especially in our faces.
Yeah. So it's the weirdest thing. I like. whenever I start losing weight, it mostly shows up in my face, which sucks. Um, well, in my butt, like I lost my cheeks and I lost my butt, and now
You lost in your
every
cushion, bro.
every single chair is uncomfortable. It's awful. And
Suddenly,
so,
it hurts to sit.
yeah, I told Maddie if I hit it big, I'm getting a BBL, because
There
I
you go.
can't deal with this. It
There you
hurts.
go.
Um, I just wish that my stomach would disappear before my butt. But anyway,
Yeah.
so so yeah, dude, at my heaviest, I was 240 pounds in 2018, and now uh well, I was down to 175. I lost 5 pounds whenever we were doing those sessions that week. And I gained it back while I was home. Typically, if whenever we go home for at least a week, if not more, I gain a mandatory 10 pounds.
It's
Um,
it's the Pittsburgh tax.
and I only gained 5 this
Hey,
time,
man.
which was cool. So
It's because
that
you left
was,
early.
yeah, because I left early.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I was down to, I think whenever we started the podcast last year, I was definitely over 200 again. I don't think I was back up to 220. But when I moved to Atlanta, I was 220. And then I started taking my health seriously and I got down. And then like it's basically like every year I kind of like cut down a little bit more
Yeah.
and I
It's
go
kind of
back up.
fluctuating.
But it's like I'm to the point now where it's like this is the best I could do through dieting. I mean, I could
Yeah.
probably get a little bit more trim through dieting, but like I just need to get really serious about the gym again.
Yeah.
And last year was whenever I was like the beginning of the year is whenever I was like really going crazy in the gym. I
Yeah.
discovered downsets, and that was incredible. It was the first time I ever saw like massive progress in like my muscles
Yeah.
in a short period of time. That was pretty cool. And so the first half of last year was mostly me like focusing on my health and like focusing on like what do I want to do, and then the second half of it was abandoning all of my healthy habits and doing the things that I wanted to do,
Yeah.
like career wise.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I learned a lot. There's like this thing that because like obviously like I'm in a pivotal point in my career, and so is my fiance.
Hmm.
So like we have a lot of conversations about this because we're both creatives, and there's this thing that happens where you think you know what you want to do,
Yeah.
but oftentimes it's influenced by a bunch of outside factors. So
Sure.
like well, like when we first started the podcast, like I was super into like the whole rock thing, like
Hmm.
active rock, and then that turned into pop music, and it was at the time it felt right. It felt like these were the things that I want to be good at. And so when I moved back to Pittsburgh, that's whenever I would like write a song every day, and I got really good at writing songs, and then like I
Yep.
started like focusing back in on production, and so it was like, oh, like I'm like a pop hip hop dude. And then I moved to Atlanta, which is crazy because you think
You did the opposite.
it would be time to double down
Yeah.
on the hip hop side of things, and I went the complete opposite way, And now I feel like I'm very much just focusing on songs, and like I
Hmm.
want to hear what people have to say. I spent so much time writing by myself and coming up with stories just to make a passable song that like I have zero interest in what I have to say anymore.
Yeah.
Which is also funny because like I do want to start releasing my own music, but as far as like whenever I work with other artists, like I only want to work with artists uh who write, who have something interesting to say, who I think can be something.
Yeah. I had a very similar trajectory of thought of like rethink. I came to a different conclusion, I think, than what yours is like. I think your conclusion has probably been more like, I'm just going to do, I'm just going to work with dope people and not care about a genre.
Yeah.
That's kind of like where you've landed, which is, I think, a very grown up producer decision. You know what I mean? Uh, and I think it'll do more for you as far as like not having to say no quite as often as well, which is pretty dope. Opens you up to more opportunity. But for me, it was like being able to say yes to a bunch of different things, try a bunch of different things. This year was my first full-time year only being paid by music, in like calendar year, like January to December. Um, which I made a whole YouTube video on that. I don't know if you saw that, but I made a whole like sit down, me talking through the year, and then like some key takeaways and things like that that I
Mm-hmm.
posted last week or earlier this week. I can't remember, but it was like a very reflecting on all of that was very interesting because I was like, oh, I know what I want to do. And then the more I went through the year, I hit this point of I don't know what I want to do. And now at the end of the year, I'm looking back at everything like both of you were correct. You did know what you wanted to do and you needed to like doubt yourself. And now I'm at the end of it going, all right, I still don't necessarily think I'm 100% as far as knowing what I want to do, but
Yeah.
I know I'm more confident in the kind of people I want to work with. It doesn't necessarily mean that I know exactly like genre wise or project wise or even piece of the project. Like I was basically a producer mixer this whole year, but I did a lot of really great tracking work that I enjoyed. I did a lot of really great like podcast work that I've enjoyed. And that's going into this year as well. And like being able to just say yes to everything and it turn into like whatever. I tracked a harp and did a Christmas album for the harp for this harpist that turned out super sick. I worked on a pop jazz record that I wasn't expecting to mix at all, and that turned out super sick. But I did a 15 song like underground hip hop record for a dude in Atlanta that like turned out really cool. And like all of those things are so vastly different. And if I had been like closed off to not saying yes to literally everything, I
There
wouldn't have been
was
able to do any of that probably. Or it may
dude,
I would have been able to do maybe one of those three things.
there was a killer conversation that I literally just had in the one Discord with this gentleman named Noah Needleman. He's in Nashville. He's in his 40s, so he's much wiser than I.
Hmm.
But oh, this isn't the right channel. And he was talking literally about this. He was like, in my 20s, I would turn down work because of silly things like genre or,
Yeah.
you know,
Or process part like,
whatever.
oh, I don't track
Here,
or I don't
here.
edit.
All right, this is a shout out for Noah. He said, there are a lot of people who approach music as a business, and I think if I did, I'd be more successful. Unfortunately for my family, I've always needed to love and believe in what I'm doing, but that prevents me from doing work that might be much more successful. I've pissed away a lot of opportunities because I don't love the music. That felt like integrity when I was young, but in my 40s, it feels more childish. I think finding things we don't like in the way others do their business is an exercise in ego. Saying I'd never do that is less helpful than I wonder why they do that. If you've,
Ooh,
yeah,
golly, dude.
dude, he's great. And
That's
so
so good.
if you spent your life building a template and that template works at a very high level for high level clients, it makes sense. You trust that. Same reason for playing live shows to click. Consistency is very tough to come by. This was in response to a supposed Nashville mixer, um, who literally put a bunch of stems in his template and rendered the mix and sent it out, and it got cleared. And a lot of people had problems with that. And Noah's like, but maybe there shouldn't be problems
Yeah,
with
why
that,
have a problem with it? Yeah.
because like honestly, me, I think that's trash. I literally, but like he does have a great point. He said, I'm not defending anyone. I don't know the situation that the dude was talking about, but I'm suggesting that we be more curious, less judgmental. Um, and I responded to him and I said, 2 years ago, I said, no more rock or metal projects. And I said, 2 weeks ago, I worked on my first label gig and it was rock and metal because I'm so far removed from the genre and don't care for most of the sonics, lyrics, or really anything about the music, like generally speaking, not with this band in
Sure.
particular. I found my ideas stuck out in ways they never did when I was actively working in the genre. The band valued my input on deeper production stuff, the lyrics, my melodies and cadences. It was my mission to not hate these songs, and that was my only goal, which is pessimistic but realistic, and I ended up loving every single one of them. And so it's like a lot of, wow, 16 people heart reacted that. That's
Heck yeah, bro.
fire,
Let's
dude.
go, dude.
But like I feel like I've fallen into this thing where it's like it's not about what I don't like. It's about the
Hmm.
potential for like making it something I do like,
Yeah.
you know? And so like I I think that oftentimes we box ourselves in, and it's not about the genre. It's not about any of these other, the thing about this project is I said yes to it because I knew I would be stupid if I passed it up.
Hmm.
And if it was only me, there's no shot I would have done a good job because there's certain things that I struggle with in that genre anymore. You know,
Yeah.
getting guitars to sound sick, like heavy rock guitars, getting rock
Yeah.
drums to sound sick. Those aren't really things I'm spectacular at
But that's
anymore.
very much like Lee's forte.
And that's exactly it. He was able to handle all the things that I was bad at, and then I was
Hmm.
able to handle all the things that he was bad at. And so it's like I proved to myself that not only can I do this in other capacities, but I took a handful of demos that like there were two demos that like I thought were really really good, but needed a lot of work and felt really weird in
Yeah.
context of the album. And then there were two songs that like I just straight up didn't like at all. And now that like they're basically done, I love every single song.
Yeah.
And so it's like that was something that I was told a very long time ago, where it's like whenever you're working on a record, it's not about what you don't like, it's about finding something that you do like, you know?
Yeah.
And sometimes that means learning to love the things that you don't like, you know?
Yeah.
And
Dude,
which is
so
like super philosophical and like,
so what's crazy that you say that? Because I'm reading a book right now called Feel Good Productivity.
mhm,
It's by Ali Abdal. He's a YouTuber. But he is a doctor. He's an ex-doctor in the national healthcare system in the UK. So, full schooled doctor, went to Cambridge, whole nine, very, very smart guy. Then became a YouTuber doing focusing and productivity. And so he kind of combined his two lives and into a book, which is super cool. And his focus is essentially the way you are your most productive is when you are able to find the joy in what you do or find an aspect of joy in what you're doing
yeah,
or make it a game and somehow make it fun. When you make it fun and you find the joy in it, you will be more productive because feeling good to do a thing is always more technically quote unquote productive than being disciplined and pushing through it. You're more
yeah,
you're more productive in feeling good and finding joy and finding pleasure in a thing than
yeah,
forcing yourself through it through
yeah,
discipline.
yeah. And like, that's kind of like, I was like, I want more projects like that.
Yeah.
Uh, I want to be in a position where I'm highly uncomfortable and I don't like most of what I'm hearing. But, you know, like, and like turning it into something that I like that other people like too is like really, really sick. You know,
Yeah.
there were a couple second verses that I was like, these are not good at all. And
Yeah.
I need to do something about it, you know?
Yeah.
And it's funny because, like, for me, like writing with the guys, I was like, we should do something like this. And they were like, all right, let's cut it. And I'm like, wait, wait, wait. We haven't talked about each word yet.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We gotta
Because
go
it's
through
like,
this real quick.
yeah, it's like, I don't know. I've spent so much time on
Yeah.
lyrics, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
that I'm like, wait, hang on. Don't cut it yet. We
Yeah,
need to
yeah,
make
yeah.
sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because
Yeah, because
I was
otherwise it
shocked.
might not play right. Yeah.
I was
Um,
absolutely shocked. And, you know, I feel like what it really comes down to is just molding songs enough that it like scratches that itch in your head for like, oh, it's a good song. I've
100%.
uh, I've been searching for like up and coming artists and stuff like that, like artists I can reach out to in the new year.
Yeah.
And I found this playlist of like pop artists in Nashville, and I was going through it, and I was telling Maddie, I was like, most of these songs are pretty bad. Like they're not good at
To
all.
be coming from an area who's known for its songwriting.
Yeah, but like it was it was always one thing that would like screwed up the whole thing. And so it was either the vocal performance wasn't right.
Mhm.
The one song was actually so bad the vocal wasn't in key with the
Oh,
instrumental.
God.
It was really bad. And I was like, chords. So okay, we have the vocal performance, we
The
have
vocal
the
production.
chords,
Yeah.
uh, and then just the overall production on a lot of these songs just kind of felt like royalty free
Oh, yeah.
beats. But like you check and it's like an actual producer like sat down and did it, and like some of these guys were like heavy hitters in Los Angeles, and I was like, man, like I that's my goal. Like I just want songs like that to not come out with my name on them.
Yeah.
No disrespect to those dudes. I have plenty of bad songs with my name
Sure.
on them. But going forward, that's my goal.
We're aiming for no stuff
Yeah.
like
And
that. Yeah.
I think what I really dialed in this year was like um my compass, my creative compass
Yeah.
of like what's going to make this song good, you know? And I think that that is actually like what producers get hired for, you know.
Dude, I was having a really good conversation, and I was telling you I had like a million meetings, yeah, literally yesterday. One of those meetings was with a younger dude who's like getting into production and like wanted to talk to somebody that does it full time. And we were having this conversation of like, I was asking him what he wants to do, like what part of the process does he want to do, all that kind of stuff. And he was like, well, I think I want to be a producer. I really like the idea of like taking a song with with a project and then like fully realizing it and like to the thing. I was like, that is a producer. I was like, but part of being a really great producer, the best producers that I know, and you even mentioned it when you were talking about the way you and Lee do, the best producers aren't afraid to be fine with not being good at a thing and having a deep Rolodex, a deep contacts list of people that can fill in their gaps, and being cool with like making the phone call and being like, hey, I'm not going to nail this mix. So can I get these people to do it? Let's make sure the budget can afford it. Or like you said, like I don't know how to dial in great rock drums or great rock guitars, but I know how to write a killer like hook. So I'm going to focus on that stuff. I'm going to focus on the melodics. I'm going to focus on the lyrics aspect, and then we're going to let Lee handle like all of the genre specific things that I'm not really keyed into.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's I think that's like the best producers that I've seen are perfectly cool with being like, yeah, I'm an okay guitar player, but if we got this guy, like that will be the thing that like, gives us that extra edge, that extra 10% that's going to really make this
Yeah.
song hit. And being able to make that call, it makes you a better producer.
And to like elaborate on that more, I think it's really important to also find people that you trust, you know.
100%.
If Lee goes, "Hey, like you wanted me to do this, but like I'm gonna go a little crazy with it." I'm gonna say, "Go a little crazy with it,"
Yeah.
because 9 out of 10 times I'm gonna love the idea.
Yeah.
Same with Seth. You know, if I send a mix to Seth
Oh
and
yeah.
he's like, "Hey,
Try some
I'm gonna get a little
craziness.
saucy with it," I'm like, "Dude, you could literally like, do whatever you want to this song. I trust you." You know, and there's a lot of songs where you kind of listen to them and you're like, "Why is that there? Why is that there?" Then you check and there's like five producers on the song, and you're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, that's why." You know. And then you hear other songs where there's only one producer, and you're like, "What were you doing?"
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
You needed some accountability in that song, yeah.
yeah, yeah. And so like, I think that it's really about finding people who understand that like it's not about you, it's about the song.
Hmm.
Like, and I think that that's like really like what changed my work for the better this year is that it very quickly went from it's not about me, it's about the song. It's not about like what I can do, it's about what the song needs me to do. And like I spent a lot of time this year learning how to make sounds that I couldn't make before. You know, like Skrillex. I was talking about this with the Spotify rap thing. It's
Yeah.
like, you know, Skrillex dropped that album and I was like, I need to learn how to do this stuff. And now it's how do I apply those skills in situations that aren't like out of context, right? Like I've been listening to uh the latest album, Paint My Bedroom Black by Holly Humberstone. Uh
Yeah.
Literally my favorite album right now. I wish I found it sooner, and it's going to be my most listened to album this year. Um, Rob Milton did the whole album, and every single sound was thought about. Every single kick was thought
Hmm.
about. Um, and there's like this really beautiful thing that he does where he'll have like these crazy like granular transitions that are tucked away that just feel like he spent a really long time just on that one little sound because it was
Yeah.
so important, you know. Even though it's not ahead of the vocal, even though it doesn't distract from the vocal, it's
Yeah. It just
like
moves the song along in such a great way that it had to be that thing.
that's what I want to strive for this year is I want to be that good. I want to be so good that like I'm not reliant on uh like other people or like loops or anything like that. Like I want
Yeah.
to be able to hear something in my head and make it happen without any crutches, you know?
Sure.
Because and personally like I don't care if people use loops. I don't care like I don't care about any of that because at the end of the day like art is art, you know. But for me personally,
Yeah.
I feel like I'm not doing my best unless if I'm capable of creating what I want to hear, you know?
Yeah.
And so, you know, I've talked about it before. Like, my plans for my next studio is going to be purely based around creating, you
Hmm.
know, and instruments and uh, being able to sit down with a synthesizer and a pedal and like make it sound how I want it to sound, you know?
Yeah.
And so that's something that's been on my mind a lot where it's like I think all of my favorite productions simply comes down to is the producer was sitting there and he was like, what does the song need me to do? You know,
Yeah.
because I think a
100%.
lot of times it's more or less like, oh well, they're hiring me because of my portfolio and in these songs I did this, so I'll pull out the same tricks. And it's like, well, that's true. It's like I think a sign of a really good producer is whenever you go, man, who produced this? And then you check and it's like a producer that you love and you're like,
Yeah.
whoa, that doesn't really sound like them,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
And
know?
you're like, whoa, that's crazy. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that kind of stuff. If you're enjoying these conversations from the podcast, I think you'll really enjoy my newsletter, The Music Maker's Handbook. It's a bi-weekly newsletter where I condense information from books, podcasts, and conversations that I have with other people in the industry down into bite-sized chunks in order for you to get the most without having to go through all of that information. Let me dive in and bring you those gems in a bi-weekly newsletter. If you want to sign up, you can check the link in the description. Now, back to the episode. So, looking forward into 2024, this current year that we are in, what is a thing that you think that you'd like to like? So you talked a little bit about it just now, like getting better at like not relying quite as much on loops. Kind of starting to move away from that. Like, what are some other things that you would say like you'd like to grow in or get better, or some goals that you have for yourself? And it can be business wise, it can be personal, it can be whatever. So,
All right, first one, RX. I want to become an RX queen, dude.
oh yeah,
I yeah, that was everybody does it that I respect, and I was like, I need to just sit down and learn. So
yeah.
I started
I don't have the full version, but I would like to learn.
I started RXing some of the vocals, and then we ended up not using those files. So tomorrow whenever Lee comes over and we wrap up these songs, I'm gonna be RXing and cleaning up audio and doing all that stuff. Um, so that's one of the goals. Um, I think that editing is probably the most important skill that a producer can have,
Mm-hmm.
aside from like the sound design producer stuff, you know.
Sure.
And obviously like the headspace producer
Yeah.
stuff. But I think that a huge problem I was like, you know, it was kind of cool listening to that playlist. I listened to almost the entire playlist yesterday while I was driving around. And because it was like I was making mental notes of like what do I like about this? What don't I like? And almost every single time I liked the artist. I
Yeah.
liked the song kind of, but it always, you know, like I said, it was always like one thing.
Yeah.
And it's like the difference between somebody like me and somebody who's rich doing exactly what I do is very, very slim,
Yeah.
you know. And I feel like every year I get a little bit closer, you know,
Mm-hmm.
but I want to get I want to get really good at RX. I want to deliver perfect vocals. I want to get fast in Pro Tools. Um, because I don't trust mixers. And so,
Mm-hmm.
like, kind of like the goal is, well, first of all, I don't think I'm going to update to Cubase 13. Steinberg kind of made me upset with that update. It
Yeah.
sucks. It sucks. If you're a longtime Cubase user, then Cubase 13 sucks. If you're just starting on Cubase, you'll have no issues with it. But
Yeah.
I don't like it. And yeah, I kind of feel like how like I feel the same way I do about Steinberg right now as whenever I left Avid for Steinberg.
Yeah.
So I want to get fast in Pro Tools again. I don't want to be married to one DAW.
Yeah.
And I've been using Ableton a lot this year. I've used Ableton way more than any other DAW this year, which is crazy.
Since
So,
you basically just started using it in the end of 2022,
well, I
back
actually
half
started in when did I have that little production space for a little bit? Uh,
2021, but
yes.
the end of 2022 was the time where you were like, I'm gonna get good at Ableton.
Yeah.
That was like
Yeah.
you used it for production in 2021, but in 20 about halfway through 2022, I remember me and you talked and you were like, I think I just want to get like really good at Ableton for a while. And like
Yeah.
that's basically all you've used for the last like year and a half.
Yeah. I mean, like
That
I
and some
said,
Pro
dude,
Tools mainly.
it's my training arc, baby.
Yeah. You
I
turned
think I
into
spent
me.
I think I spent more time in Pro Tools this year than I did in Cubase, which is
That's crazy.
upsetting.
Yeah, you
Which is
turned into me
upsetting.
100%.
Um and so I don't know. Then again, like I am a wizard on Cubase, so I shouldn't neglect it.
It is what
But
it is. Yeah.
anyway, so like technical skills, I want to get good at RX. I want to get good at Pro Tools. Um, business stuff, I want to stop being a hermit on social media. So I'm going to start posting content. I haven't figured out what yet. That was kind of my goal for this week, and I just fumbled.
Yeah. You
Um,
you you had a lot going on the last like holiday stuff. And
it's
I
been
will say
nuts.
you did try your hand at some YouTube stuff last year and some content stuff last year. And overall, I think it actually did pretty well for your first couple like attempts into it.
Yeah, it really wasn't bad. I want to do things differently. I want to
Sure.
do things. I don't know. I'm still working on it, but I'll figure it out. I want to start dropping my own music. I have a lot of
Yeah.
demos that I love that are never going to get placed with an artist. So I'm going to start releasing that, and then basically what I'm going to do is I snagged my like the Josh Wright songs handle like
Yeah.
months and months and months ago, and so that's going to be my like professional account,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
because
and for the people, you finally have a website.
yeah, I oh that's another thing I did last year. I took down my
Yeah.
website because I was like my portfolio wasn't what I wanted to be showing people, and
Now you have a really solid portfolio.
I know I have a pretty. It's only going to get better within the next few
I
months,
know, but
which is
like
great.
I just like looking through it because I worked with you on two of those.
Hmm.
And yeah, the two St. Young songs I work with you on, and the other ones I had just heard because you showed me the cavern stuff and all that, and I was like, yeah, dude, this is a really great portfolio and also pretty broad, but like not so broad that you don't feel like the same guy worked on it. That's the like the interesting part is like I can feel that you worked on those projects still,
Thank you.
which is like a testament to you for picking good stuff.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I that's something that I've heard from multiple people now where I'll play them something that's like way different
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, but it still sounds like you. And
Yeah.
I'm like, that's a good thing.
Yeah, that's good. That's what you
That's a
want,
good thing.
especially as a songwriter, like
Yeah.
producer. Like that's really what you want.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's definitely this, like, I have my go-tos that I
Yeah,
like, you know,
melodically
and
and stuff. Yeah.
yeah, like, especially when it comes to melodically or like cadences, it's like,
Hmm.
if the second verse, we're like switching to the eighth note cadence, it's just, it was me.
The
It
number
was me.
one Josh move on a verse from
Yeah.
writing with you is da na na da na 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 da na na da na 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 na. First two
Yeah.
lines of a verse. That's
Basically.
that's where you start.
Basically. And yeah, so I don't know. I have like little things that I really enjoy hearing, and I
Yeah.
think that they just kind of pop in. I'm trying to
Yeah.
be better about not being married to certain like Josh stereotypes, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah. Well, I just wanted
Um,
to interrupt and say that because I didn't want to forget it because otherwise I was going to forget it.
yeah, so I got a new website.
Heck
It's
yeah.
my first and last name,
So you're gonna start pushing
joshuamatotek.com.
content to lead people to that website. So that's
Yes,
good.
sir. Yes, sir.
Uh, vertical or long form or both.
Probably both, but I don't know how much I want to do long form. I'm really bad at video. I mean, we've talked about it a
Yeah,
lot. Like, I'm just not a video dude,
yeah,
obviously from how our two cameras look right
yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and so I don't have a lot of equipment. I don't have like a very pretty space right now, so I feel pretty insecure about like doing these
That's
like how
fair.
to make a song like so and so, and then like you hear my refrigerator running, and it's
Yeah,
like
no, that's fair.
and
I
it's
get
like
that.
I don't know. At the end of the day, there was this big producer that I found. Dude, I love whenever you find somebody that you have never heard of that has like 1,000
Insane
followers
credits.
and they have gnarly credits.
Oh,
That
that's
makes
my
me
favorite.
happy. That makes me real happy.
Yeah,
But I found this one dude and he did some of that where it was like, this is how I produce blah, 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 blah. And like you literally see his bed in the background. And
yeah,
it's like, I respect it.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Big ups.
I think
Big
there's,
ups.
yeah, yeah. I think there's a place for all that, and I think vertical is going to be the easiest for you to start. I wouldn't stress too much on the long form right now.
Yeah.
I would say doing videos like you did before that last year, the couple that you did, like even posting one of those like once a month or once every other month, I think would be a pretty good goal. So that way you're not stressed about like having to edit a ton. Like you
Yeah.
can spread the edit over the course of a month
Yeah,
and
what Lee
really
and I
just
are going to do though is we're going to push like production breakdowns for the artists that allow us to do it.
yeah, and I think that would be a great thing too.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool because like I don't know, there's kind of like two brands that I got to push, like my own, and then like the Lee and me thing, and
Yeah.
then we have Lee who's going to be like pushing his own stuff too.
Yeah, for sure.
Because his focus for his own endeavors is primarily going to be like rock mixing,
Mhm.
and then our stuff together is going to be like anything that involves instruments, and then like the stuff that I push for on my own is
Yeah.
going to be more like deeper into the nerdy production pop world.
Sure.
And so it's kind of cool. Like we've talked about this a lot and it's kind of neat where like we're able to both push for these things, and then as opportunities come through that like make sense for both of us, like we're just gonna do it together.
Yeah.
And
Because it'll make
because
sense. Yeah.
yeah,
No,
it's one of those things where it's like every time we work on something together, we're very happy with it. So
yeah. So content stuff, and you're gonna get better at your instruments and synths and things.
yeah, and then as far as like so yeah, we have the social stuff that I want to push, and
Yeah.
then my other goal is just to make way more money than I ever have before. So
I feel that. I feel that.
yeah, I don't know. Like I wasn't very focused on money this past year because like there was a lot to like figure out, and there was a lot to work on, and
Yeah,
it's like this year it's like okay, cool, like let's do it. Let's just do it.
for
You
sure.
know?
I have like a couple. So I told you one already, which is I like setting the goal to like 50% my income
Yeah.
every year, which I've been able to do 100% up until this past year, and I 50%ed it this year, which was still really good. And so, my goal is to do that again. You know, I'm trying to set myself up to do that better. And then, so the way I like to set goals is like have the big overarching goal, which that is my big overarching goal, right? Is the I want to 50% my income this year. All right. So based on that, what can other underlying goals can I set to then feed into that so that all of my things that I'm doing are working towards the same goal.
Mm.
So I'm going to still keep working on YouTube stuff. I've got some good success with that as far as getting clients, which has been really fun. Getting some little bit more notoriety. I feel like I'm getting better at just like talking in general, which is nice. Having more clear thoughts and things like that. So I'm gonna keep working on that. I'm probably gonna scale back to doing once a month videos myself, just because there are some videos that I want to do that are gonna require more time to shoot and edit, and I don't want to stress myself out because then that will stress out the rest of the job. So I have this idea to do producer and industry focused like little mini docs or like pieces. So
Mhm.
a for instance would be like a very easy for instance would be uh how Kenny Beats changed the producer streaming model in on Twitch and what he did by going to Twitch and basically saying, I'm an A-list producer, here's everything. And I'm just gonna show you everything that I do. And like that veil just being gone and opening it up and creating that community and all that kind of stuff. What he did was crazy. And even with the cave, like and showing the behind the scenes and all that kind of stuff, like that was never done before.
Mm.
Um,
Not at that
Not
level.
at that level. It had been done at like the medium level, but you weren't gonna you weren't gonna pull up a video with a producer and Denzel Curry's just going at it, and you're
Yeah.
watching them all raw, just like
Yeah.
talk and all that. So there's that aspect of it. There's like people I want to talk about and aspects I think that people overlook as far as like learning from other people, like why you need to learn from Kenny, why you need to learn from people like Andrew Huang, why you need to learn from like I think Nick D is doing a lot as far as the independent artist side of things.
Yeah.
There's just a couple other people, and those like things are going to be a lot more intense as far as like the workload. I'm gonna have to actually script that out. I'm gonna have to like get interview clips, and it's just gonna take more work than a once a week video can manage. So I'm not gonna really worry about it. I'm gonna scale back intensely so I can do more videos that I'm like interested in.
Mhm.
On top of the like, here's how I produced this song video, or here's this cool thing that I learned video, stuff like that. So
Yeah.
that's
I would
one thing
also
as content goes for
I would
me.
also really love to um dive into like all the stuff that we were talking about, where it's like building a company based around like things that producers need instead of
Yeah,
just like the same old like cymatics, like loop, whatever that other
lo-fi
company
warble
is.
plugin. Yeah,
Yeah, it's like there's so many like drum sample companies, which like first of all, most of them aren't even that great. Like you got that sound, which like is good, but like samples from Mars is the best. And then
I
is
got
it?
turned on to Circles.
Yeah, Circles is pretty good too.
I liked their dry kit stuff is so good. It's the best dry kit, like deep snare stuff that I've found.
Jake Reed, that's the one. This
Yeah,
guy, this guy knows what he's doing. I like Jake Reed a lot more than Circles. Um, you could get everything he has for 150 bucks. But I think, and then like of course like there are like some contact libraries and stuff like that that
sure.
help out with a lot of the stuff that we want to do. But I I have a vendetta against contact, and I know a lot of other people who also have a vendetta against
Yeah,
contact. And I think it would be super sick to offer like a pack where it's just different patterns of tambourines, because for some reason, every time you find a tambourine loop, it's never exactly what you want. Um,
Yeah,
and
I have
like
like
I,
3 that I use on like every song.
yeah, because those are the ones that you
Yeah, those
want.
are the ones that work. And I
Yeah,
have none of them are 6/8.
yeah, none of them. We ran into that, and so I'm in there
Yeah.
doing my thing.
I normally just cut it up and like make it feel right, but
Yeah, and so like I think it would be sick to have do like a percussion pack of like
mhm.
shakers, tambourines, uh, the kind of stuff where like you can go to Guitar Center with like, $150 and get a bunch of cool toys and
Yeah.
you know, do that sort of thing. I think it would be super sick to get into like more of like the basics, like
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
always
yeah.
looking for like the basic kick, but then you have to scroll through 300 of them,
Yeah.
and like a lot of them like really aren't good because like especially on Splice, I feel like a lot of these guys are either pulling them from productions where they worked or they're just like in a
Making
crunch to like get
theoretically
everything
good
done.
stuff.
Yeah, and it's like so I would love to do stuff like that where it's just like here's like the basics for like this sound and it's not like overly specific.
Yeah.
That's why I like samples from Mars so much
Yeah.
because it's like they're just good drum machines or like like they have like the vinyl drums which
Yeah.
rip and it's like you can use them in any genre because it's simply the sound of that thing,
Yeah.
and so
It's not
I would,
processed to be a specific genre.
yeah, I would love to do something like that.
Yeah.
I think that would be so sick.
That's really cool. Yeah, I remember us talking about that. Yeah, that's a really good idea. I think that'll be something product wise that we'll have to look forward to in the new year. Another thing for me is this kind of feeds into everything. So I do just to lay out like all of the things that I do for content related things. So I have this podcast. Um I'm actually joining another podcast with a buddy of mine that's not music related. That's just like a stream podcast that's like it's going to be called Things We Like, and it's going to be like literally the most BS like TMG-esque thing where we're just like talking about random stuff. The most TikTok clickbaity things that we can talk about, having takes and all that
I
kind of
can't
stuff.
wait to be a guest,
No,
dude.
you will 100%. But so I'm doing those, and those are really just like, general broad, stuff. And then I also do the YouTube video stuff, and then I'll make some shorts. And then I also run a newsletter that goes out every other week, of email newsletter called Music Maker's Handbook. And it's pretty cool. I like it. So a thing that kind of all of those things feed into the client acquisition part of me trying to 50% my income. The way I'm going to help all of those things start flourishing more is, and I've been doing this the last 5 days actually, is I'm writing 1,000 words a day. So I'm just like, in the morning I get up, I drink my coffee, I read a book, and then I'll get an idea halfway through reading that book. I pick up my iPad and then I start typing on a doc, and I'll write my thoughts, and then that page can turn into either a script for a YouTube video, a newsletter, a script for a short form thing, or maybe some content ideas for the podcasts. So like I can dump my ideas and that all gets repurposed into other content.
That's great. That's something that
Um,
I started dabbling with is I carry a notebook with me everywhere.
yeah,
That way if I have any thoughts that need out of my head, I can just write them down, whether it's like
yeah,
remembering what to buy at the grocery store or like
for sure.
something I want to like research more or
Well, then
whatever.
like a 10-year goal for me is I would love to write a book. I don't know what it would be about, but like I want to go ahead and start getting into the practice of like writing now, because I read a ton. Um, I capped out at 42 books for last year, and I'm already, yeah, last year I read 42 books, and I didn't read for like 4 months. So like that's me really only reading for like 7 or 8 months. Uh, and I read 42 books. This year, I'm already 5 deep in the first 5 days. I've been knocking out like left and
But
right.
you're not reading those. No, you're
Yeah,
just flipping pages. You're
I'm
like
just
reading like
flipping
the
pages.
first
I read
sentence
really
and you're like,
fast. I read
oh,
really,
first
really
sentence.
fast. And I read
What's this
multiple
book
books at one
about?
time. I read multiple books at one time, so I'm reading 3 at one time right now. Um, yeah, so I read one in the morning. I listen to an audiobook at night when I'm trying to fall asleep, and then I have another book that I read during lunchtime when I'm taking my breaks. So, and if I do that every day and read multiple chapters every day for like 30, 45 minutes, it just stacks over the course of a week.
I need to get better
Um,
about that. I'm really bad at reading.
that's just something that
I've
I
never
do because I
been
enjoy reading.
I've never been
But
good at reading. It's mostly because
you got to find the right books, dude. That's the thing.
man, I made this joke the other day. I forget what we were watching. I think we were watching Kill Tony, and this dude somehow he likes to read. I was
Hmm.
like, that guy does not look like he likes to read. That guy reads the page 5 times before he understands what's actually said on the page, and
Yeah,
then he goes on to the next one. And I said that because that's exactly how I read books.
yeah, yeah. I that
It
was too
takes
deep, too personal.
Yeah, and like I like in a way like I roasted somebody else, but I also roasted myself. I
Yeah,
don't I'm really bad at reading, and because of that, it makes me more hesitant to like pick up a book. But it's
dude. I got
oh,
some really great things. Are you trying to get into like more fiction, nonfiction?
all I'm trying to do is finish Dune.
The first
I,
one?
yeah, I still dude, I
Oh,
haven't
I'm
picked it
reading
up in
Dune,
months.
dude. I'm reading Dune this year. It's on my list to read
Okay.
this year. I'm reading it, and I'm gonna watch the movie, and then I'm gonna read it again.
Okay, well
Um,
then now I have to finish it. The problem also is that like I'm basically done with the movie part of it.
yeah,
And so it's one of those things where it's like I know like what's gonna happen, but it's really cool like reading all the stuff that didn't make it into the book, you
yeah.
know. But I need to finish it because the
Well, here's
next
the thing,
movie's
dude.
coming out this year.
You need to. I know, and you need to finish the book because when I finish the book, that's probably what we will talk about when I have you on the other podcast.
Yes.
Is Dune. So
Uh,
uh, that'll be fun.
uh,
But there's a bunch of really good books. I mean, if you're trying to get into nonfiction, like the one that I was talking about, the Feel Good Productivity one, I actually feel like you would vibe with that one so heavy. It's
mhm.
very much like up your alley of like the dude is very nerdy and he's like he's not writing from this position of like I am this multi-million dollar businessman bro, like listen to like he's not Gary V'ing it at all. He's like very much relationally, it reads like he talks, which is really nice. So
Yeah, I started rereading This Is Marketing by Seth Godin.
that's a
I
good one.
I hate admitting it, but it's one of my favorite books.
No,
And
don't, dude, that's a great book.
well, that's like a very like Sigma Chad thing to say. You know what I
Nah,
mean?
I think 4 Hour Work Week is probably the more Sigma Chad favorite book.
Yeah, yeah. 4 Hour Work Week is my
Which
daddy runs a hedge fund.
I like 4 Hour Work Week, but really everybody only talks about like 2 chapters in that book. They talk
Yeah,
about the 80/20 principle, which is not even like that's not even his thing.
one, it's not even his thing, but I feel like the 80/20 principle is also kind of like bullshit and like what okay,
Not really. It's
here,
true,
do you
but
want my hot take? You
yeah,
want my hot take, dude?
hot take, Josh.
The majority of these business bros that write books literally come up with these ideas and push them on their fellow bros because they know that the consuming bros are just going to use confirmation bias to be like, this book changed my life.
Yeah, I never I very I don't say never. I very rarely will say about a nonfiction book, this book changed my life. I will say I get some really good ideas from some books. There
Wait,
are
wait.
only a couple that have ever done that for me.
The best thing that you just said there, though, is nonfiction because I feel like I feel like really good fiction stories
Oh,
do way
it'll
more for you.
yeah, because it's being told in a story format. So, and that's funny that you say that because one of the books that I did read last year is called Stories That Stick, and it was I may have talked to you about this, but it's a girl who specializes in storytelling based marketing, very similar to like building a story brand kind of idea.
Yeah, yeah, I read
Uh,
that book.
So it's really good. That book was also really good because he talked about like it makes a lot of sense when you start diving into it. But actually like the way that she did it better. I would highly recommend you listen
I
or
I
read to the book.
will check it out because I just got a I made a Libby account and I need to go and
Yeah,
get a
dude.
library
So
card.
now that you have, so go get Hoopla as well, because if you get,
Mm.
you'll if you get access to the library, Stories That Stick is on Hoopla, so you can listen to it on audiobook. Uh, so the thing about Stories That Stick is whenever she's talking about, so the way that the book works is every chapter is like a business, right? So
Hmm.
she talks about like a part of the book is like we're going to focus on this business. She introduces the issue, and then she talks about how she fixed that issue, or she tells the story of the issue being fixed, and then she goes into specifics on why what she did worked and kind of gives you the full detailed walkthrough of what she did, which is incredible. And it's also like big business, small business, and nonprofit, so you get like a bunch of different viewpoints. It's not just like big Fortune 500 companies or whatever, or startups or tech startups. So she kind of runs the gambit of like types of businesses, which is also cool. The best part about it is the whole like each part that talks about a business, the story, that the way she tells the story of doing all of that is so intriguing that it just proves the point of what she's talking about.
Hmm.
Like she does in the book. The problem I have with building a story brand is it gives you a bunch of facts. The what I like about Stories That Stick is that she does such a good job of through story explaining the facts that she proves her own point by being a good storyteller in the book.
Yeah, I feel like
If that
there's
makes
also
sense.
this thing with communicating where I feel like naturally women are better at it. Like I feel that
Especially
way
with the
about like
storytelling aspect of it.
yeah, I feel like like the best songwriters are women. Like I feel like the best authors are women. I think that like so like it's kind of cool that like a woman wrote a book about that because that's something I'm like really fascinated with is like obviously like men and women like communicate differently.
Yeah.
And so like as a songwriter, like I have to like try to understand the female perspective better. And so like
Yeah.
I've only been listening to like female artists because like I want to get better at that because I never want to be in a session with a female artist and then they're like, "Man, this guy just really doesn't get it. He doesn't like my ideas." And it's like,
Yeah.
"No, like I want to understand it so then I can make
I'm very
even
excited.
cooler records, you
I'm
know?"
very
So it's
excited
sick
about
that
next year for that same reason for the podcast too, because I'm trying to branch us out and get more like non-male guests.
we haven't had a single female guest yet, huh? At least one that I
First
was
of the
on.
year. We have one in January.
Wow.
I've been trying to do it, but it's hard. I need to have a connection with people, and like reaching out to people is really hard. And I also feel, I don't know, just that approaching that is very weird for me.
Well, it's also one of those things where like I feel like one of the worst things that you could do in the name of diversity is have people on just because they're women. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
exactly. And that's the thing is
That's
like
something
I
that
don't want to do. I want to
yeah,
have awesome people on. And so like if somebody piques my interest as far regardless of who they are or how they identify, like I want them on because they're
yeah,
dope.
because they're dope. Yeah, and like no, I totally get it. It's very weird. I remember I saw this thing a while back about how this one publishing company was doing uh like like they were making it mandatory that like every single session that they put together has to have at least one woman in the room. And I remember reading that and I was like, I would hate to be that woman. Where it's like, the only reason why you're there is because you're a woman.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know. It seems weird whenever people like do stuff like it feels disrespectful. You know what I mean? It's like, why don't you just hire her because she's great? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, why?
100%.
Like,
I want
I
to
don't know.
seek out. I think the other thing is I just need to be more better. Be more better. I need to be more active about seeking out those things. I think that's on
Yeah.
me And it's not even on me necessarily, because the whole first couple of years I've just been pulling from people that I know, and I mainly work with guys, so that's just how it works.
Yeah,
Um,
that's something that I want to uh, get into more too. Is I want to work with more female artists, just because I that's like all I listen to right
yeah,
now.
yeah, you
Yeah,
mainly do listen to like female songwriters.
yeah, and so it's like I don't know. I just I think that like the way that women communicate is just very interesting.
Yeah.
You know.
So that kind of is all of like the content side of things for me. So I'm going to focus on like the different content outputs, and then in order to feed those content outputs, I'm going to write every day to basically give
Hmm.
me more ideas, to so that I'm not having, because I find it really hard to sit down and be like, I need to make a video. Let's make a video. And I'm like, okay, well, what do I make a video about? And then I try to make the video, and then it comes out okay, but I don't fully explain the idea because I haven't thought it through, and I just try to turn on a camera and go. If I'm writing, I do a better job of thinking through all of the aspects, and then I can go back through and create a better outline for myself as far as like creating a video or whatever. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, if you want to follow the newsletter or anything, I'll leave links to mine and Josh's websites, the Music Makers Handbook newsletter, and also our YouTube channels, our individual YouTube channels, in the description of the video and audio versions of the podcast, so that you can go check those out. And then as far as like that's like the more, I guess, business output side. As far as like the music output side for me, my goal is actually to start offloading some work, which has been I'm very excited about. So I have one guy I'm training on vocal tuning that's going to be my main like vocal tuning guy. Uh, so I can train him on working specifically with me for vocal tuning. But he's also, so this is the reason I wanted to do this with him. He is a singer. So if I ever need background vocals recut, or more layers of background vocals, I can just give him extra money on top of that and pay him just a little extra to go ahead and just do it himself, instead of me having to worry about cutting it or getting the artist
Yeah.
back in to cut it. Like, so basically he's a one-stop like post vocal work situation for me, which is going to be great.
Yeah.
And then the other side of it is one of the meetings I had yesterday was, I told you, with a kid who's interested in like kind of watching me do stuff. And part of that is going to be, if it works out, I'm taking him with me to like 3 or 4 sessions next week. If he has a good vibe in the studio, and he's going to be at a podcast recording, a full band recording, and a like a tracking session. So a bunch of different kinds of stuff. He'll be around a bunch of different people. I'll see how he handles different situations. Hopefully I can bring him on as an assistant, and or like a intern assistant kind of situation, and have him start doing session prep work for me so that I can not have to worry about that part. Give him a little bit of money on that, and then be able to churn out sessions a lot faster, like projects a lot, because that's, I think, the thing right now that's messing me up is I could probably take on more work if my processes were better set in place to like get me to the creative part faster.
Yeah. That's that's also like a big Pro Tools thing that I can't stand. It's like organizing a session and like
It's a pain
getting
in the
it set
butt
up
sometimes.
sucks in
Yeah.
Pro Tools. It takes so long. All of my key commands in Cubase were basically set up to like make me do that way
Well, and like
faster.
importing
You know.
files is complicated, and
I know. It's such a pain, dude.
like, I mean, and by complicated I mean like, so for those that use Pro Tools that don't use another DAW, like in Ableton, I can right click, grab and drag them in, and it'll automatically dump them in alphabetically or number or numerically, whichever comes first. And so like I could have all of my tracks numbered and then dump them in, and it'll be in the right order, and then I can just start working and not have to worry about anything. Like, so in Pro Tools I can technically do that, but I still have to go through the whole import audio, let it process, and if there's a shit ton of tracks, I gotta wait on that whole thing to process, and then it's gotta if I'm upscaling it like to 48K, it's got to reprocess it into a 48K, and then it just
That's
takes
like,
forever.
yeah, like Cubase is so fast with it that like whenever I started using Ableton, I was like, I'm never working with stems again in Ableton. This sucks. But
Yeah.
like,
So I tend to work in Ableton like if I'm building something from scratch in there, then sure. But I
yeah.
try not to go the other way around
Have
with
you messed with
Ableton.
Ableton Link at all?
Like in Pro Tools, like the
Yeah.
live link thing, I have
Hmm.
not in a
It's pretty
long
cool.
time. I did it a really long time ago whenever I was using Reason because you could host Reason inside of Ableton. So I used to do that a lot.
Yeah.
But I haven't
What?
done it the other way around.
Yeah, I think what I'm gonna start doing is, um, so basically like build the session, whatever,
Yeah.
use Ableton Link, cut the vocal in Pro Tools, fly the vocal into Ableton, and then do all my vocal production in there, and then bounce everything out
Nice.
into Pro Tools and finalize there.
That's kind of what I do, except not quite as streamlined. That's the
The
other thing I have
biggest,
to figure out this year, streamlining all that stuff.
yeah, so that's been an issue for us. Thankfully, with these sessions, we went into it knowing we shouldn't do any group processing because
Yeah.
we can't afford to take that much time to like render
Yeah.
everything. And so
Or
all
have
the
to
groups,
re-render if something's
yeah, like
better. Yeah.
it was super easy. But then like getting everything into Pro Tools and organizing it and all that, it just like takes so long. It's annoying. It's so
Yeah. So
annoying.
I'm very much trying to like I hate talking about processes because that's like super nerdy and super boring, but I processes is in like the like checklist style processes that we kind of have to do. It's not sexy at all, but I will say I need to have some sort of I had a set kind of way of doing things when I was just producing and mixing everything. But now that I'm getting a lot more stuff inbound that I'm just mixing and I didn't produce, like I need processes for getting those
Everything.
things, like
Yeah.
everything. I gotta like completely throw everything out and like
We're
rebuild it all.
That's something that we were just talking about where we were like, we need to have a checklist so then
Yeah,
every single time we do this, we don't mess anything
like
up.
a good SOP. Yeah,
Because there were just some things that we missed and then we would have to go back in, re-render it. Like
yeah,
it was such a pain. But like ultimately, like so far the easiest way that I found it is, so in Cubase you're typically using stereo tracks, and if you render anything, it's even like mono files, it'll show up as stereo because it's going
yeah,
to a stereo bus. So the first step once you're done is make two buses. So we have stereo render, mono render, and then I go through and I reassign the bus outputs of every single track to either mono or stereo, depending on what they are. And then you go into the render queue and then render all the stems.
yeah.
And that the render queue in Cubase, A plus, every DAW should have one, but they don't, and that makes everything way harder.
It's Cubase
Because
functions a lot like a video editor in that way because
yeah,
there's render queues and view. That's a very much a video editor kind of thing to do.
exactly. And then what's also sick about all that is, so like whenever I do group stems, it's the same exact thing. I just go through, I highlight all the tracks that I want in one of the stems, and I assign them to a new bus called blah 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 render, or I reassign the bus, and then I'm able to just click on all the tracks that say render and then render those, and it's fantastic. It works great. But going forward, we have to figure out like how to accomplish like the same thing in Pro Tools and Ableton and all that, just so
Yeah,
like we're prepared. You know what I mean?
yeah. Regardless of where you start working in a
Because
project,
like
it can
I'll
all
be
be the
honest,
same.
like rendering with Ableton sucks. Like I wrote a Python script that automatically deletes files that are lowercase. Um, because what I would do is I would rename everything, and if it was lowercase, it means that it fed a bus, and I was going to use the bus, and if it was uppercase, then that means it's either a bus or the final file, or I don't want to use the bus processing, and then it would just delete all the extra files,
Nice.
and that was pretty cool. But I'm kind of scared to use it.
Yeah. Because what if everything's gone and you use it in the wrong time? It didn't process yet or something. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like it's kind of silly. So
Yeah.
I haven't figured that out yet, but I'm excited for Ableton 12.
Yeah. I'm mixed on it, but I think it's going to be cool.
Yeah.
I think when I get my hands on it, I'll love it. Just like it doesn't seem very sexy, but I think I'm probably going to enjoy it.
What do you mean, dude? It's oh, it looks beautiful. I'm
The
so
actually the
excited.
UI is like the thing I'm most excited
Well,
about
the
it.
UI, but then also like they made everything in it so it can all be in context of what key the song is in, and that makes me so excited.
I gotta.
I'm so excited. And then the
Yeah,
MIDI editing, they made the MIDI editing even better than Cubase.
I think when I get it, I'll probably love it more than
Yeah.
not.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm very excited for it because it seems like it's going to get even faster and you'll be able to do more in it. And
Yeah,
it's just sick. I wish that they would make a few other changes to make it more like other normal DAWs. You know what I mean? But it's a little bit closer, which is cool. So,
yeah. I think it's its own thing. I think it's starting to figure out its own. I think it's starting to figure out its place
you know what's really funny?
more.
I realized how like married I am to the workflow now because like we would be working on something and I'm like, oh, I really wish I could add in. I wish I could make this a rack and put in a dry chain and then add on another chain
Yeah.
too. And Lee's like, "What are you talking about?" So I'm like trying to do it with like Wave Studio Rack,
Oh yeah.
And like, yeah, I don't know. There's a bunch of stuff that I love about the workflow. So
Yeah. I'm not sure what is going to be what it's going to be like, but I have to get it anyway. So yeah, I think the last thing for me is also because I have a third thing. The last thing for me is this like side podcast business that I'm doing with
yeah,
Brad, which you came up and checked out, and really the goal for it for me is to be like just side income that is. I mean, nothing's totally passive, but it'll be as passive as it can be.
yeah,
And I'll be able to like just worry about client acquisition eventually, be just able to worry about client acquisition and take give like pay other people, like pay the homies, be able to give the homies a nice little income piece, extra, $600 to $1,000 a month for everybody would be great. You know what I mean? No
hmm
one's gonna say no to that. So um for a little bit of work. So yeah, I don't know, man. We'll figure that out, but it's basically like a turnkey podcast service where I have businesses come in and then I help them produce their shows and make it interesting. And yeah, that's kind of the whole spiel. And then they get podcasts and content, and I've been calling it content flooding, which I
yeah,
feel like is a very, very interesting term that like businesses will latch on to. Uh, Especially if I'm talking to like a marketing guy.
hmm
I can be like, well, what we want to do is we want a content flood, and that's what our company specializes in. We help you create 20 pieces, 24 individual pieces of custom content a month on top of any extra things that you might want to do with us for X amount of dollars a month for a year contract. So that's
very
the
sick.
businessy spiel. But
I'm
hopefully
very
I can
pumped for
get,
that.
yeah, it's going to be cool. That all feeds into the trying to 50% my income, baby. Let's go.
You're gonna do it,
So
dude.
let's go. But I don't. Yeah, I mean that's all. That's all I have to talk about for this coming year. Most of it is just like I want to read like 100 books if I can. So
Yeah, very
that's
cool.
other random stuff. Like I'm trying to take Saturdays off, and which is not looking promising so far this year because I already have 2 Saturdays booked out. So,
Yeah.
but it is what it is. Well, Josh, do you have anything else you'd like to add on this fine afternoon?
I'm good, man.
Good, because I'm also good, and I'm hungry. I have not eaten lunch.
Same.
So I'm gonna go eat lunch. Josh, thank you for being here with me.
No, thank you.
Thank you,
Mm-hmm.
listener. Thank you so much for watching.
Yeah.
Watchers, thank you so much for listening.
Yeah.
And we will see you next time